Chosen one, you didn't find this video by accident. Something in the hidden currents of your life has pulled you here, a sign that the veil is lifting and truth is demanding to be seen. This moment was written into your path long before you were born. And the fact that you're hearing these words proves that your soul is ready to remember what the world tried to make you forget. They mocked you, overlooked you, and dismissed you, but what they did not know was that silence was forging your crown in fire. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. What if I told you that the very crown they swore you would never wear is already burning back into sight? That what they thought was gone forever is the very proof that you cannot be erased. Stay until the end, because the truth of your authority is about to be unsealed. Number 1. The crown they could not see. For years, you carried a crown that no one acknowledged. They saw only the surface, the mistakes, the wounds, the quiet spaces where you did not announce yourself. To them, invisibility meant insignificance. But invisibility was protection, a cloak woven by divine hands to shield you until the appointed time. Remember the words of 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. When David was overlooked because of his appearance, yet chosen by God because of his heart. Your crown was never absent. It was hidden, waiting for your moment to rise. Comment, I seal this word in light. If you know your silence was never emptiness, but the ground where authority was growing. Because what they could not see then, they cannot deny now. There are moments in life when a quiet voice inside whispers that you are more than what others have said, more than what your scars suggest, more than the roles you were forced to play. Perhaps it came to you in a dream, where you saw yourself standing in garments of light while the world around you was still dim. Or perhaps it came in silence, when an image appeared in your mind of a crown resting unseen upon your head. You may have dismissed it, thinking it was imagination or longing, but deep down you felt the pull of recognition. That whisper was not fantasy but memory, echoing from a place beyond time. It was the first signal that your story had never been ordinary, that your identity was cloaked in mystery by divine hands. And now, as you hear these words, that memory is stirring again, calling you to remember what they could not see. For years, you carried the ache of difference, a sense of not fitting into the patterns around you. You noticed details others overlooked, felt emotions more intensely, and often stood on the margins wondering why your presence seemed to make others uneasy. People may have labeled you too sensitive, too quiet, too intense, or too withdrawn. They mistook your restraint for weakness, your silence for emptiness, and your patience for passivity. But behind those misunderstandings was a deeper truth. You were holding space for something that had not yet revealed itself. The isolation you felt was not punishment, but positioning. The longing that never left your heart was not confusion, but a compass pointing you toward your hidden crown. And while others laughed or dismissed you, heaven was already preparing your unveiling. It is easy to believe that pain has no pattern, that rejection is meaningless, and that silence is wasted. Yet, chosen one, the truth is that every step of your journey has been shaped by a greater hand. Just as David was passed over by his own family when Samuel came to anoint the next king, you too were overlooked because they could not see beyond the surface. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. Your invisibility was not failure, it was protection. Your rejection was not emptiness, it was refinement. Every time they ignored you, it was another layer of covering placed around your crown until the time of revelation arrived. What felt like randomness was architecture, an unseen design orchestrating your rise. And the crown they denied was the very one being forged in silence. Perhaps you've noticed subtle signs along the way, dreams that replayed with uncanny detail, moments of déjà vu that made time itself feel bent, encounters with strangers who spoke words that pierced straight to your spirit. Maybe you felt physical sensations you couldn't explain, chills in sacred silence, weight in your chest before breakthrough, a stirring in your hands when truth brushed against you. These were not accidents. They were breadcrumbs from the divine, like symbols etched into the fabric of your days. They were codes meant to awaken you slowly, carefully, until you were strong enough to carry what they could not. Every sign, no matter how small, was proof that the crown upon your life was never absent, only hidden. And every whisper you brushed aside is now returning louder, undeniable, demanding to be remembered. There is a moment when the soul realizes that its deepest intuitions were never lies. That moment has arrived for you. The times you felt unseen were not illusions, but confirmations that your path could not be explained by ordinary eyes. The crown you carried in silence has always been real, and its weight has been shaping your spirit even when you doubted yourself. Recognition does not explode like lightning. It blooms like dawn, quiet but unstoppable. You are not imagining this awakening, chosen one. You are finally seeing what has always been there. The safety of silence is being exchanged for the strength of revelation. And as you stand in this recognition, you are discovering that you were never lost, only hidden until now. Awareness deepens when you realize that becoming who you are is not about gaining something new, but about remembering what was buried. Your true identity has never left you. It was woven into your being before your first breath. You carry archetypes older than history, echoes of a lineage that surpasses bloodlines. The unease you felt in this world was not a flaw, but a signal. You were carrying a story too vast for the boxes they tried to force you into. Just as Joseph's dreams placed him at odds with his brothers, your inner visions placed you outside of their comfort. Yet those very visions are the sign that you were marked, sealed, and set apart. You are not becoming extraordinary. You are recovering the truth that was hidden under layers of noise and lies. The first activation begins when you stop apologizing for your difference and start recognizing it as your strength. Your sensitivity is not weakness. It is your antenna. Your silence is not emptiness. It is your altar. Your pain is not meaningless. It is your preparation. Every tear you shed was watering the ground of your authority. Every night of solitude was polishing the crown they could not see. This is not about arrogance, but about awakening, an acknowledgement that you were chosen not because of their approval, but in spite of it. The very traits they tried to shame are the traits that announce your rise, and the very crown they mocked is the crown that will blaze before their eyes. So hear this final affirmation, chosen one. Your arrival to this message is no accident. The words you are hearing now are not simply spoken. They are remembered. You are standing at the edge of unveiling, where what was hidden bursts into sight. The crown they could not see has been waiting for this exact moment to shine. Comment: I carry the silence as crown. If you know in your spirit that your quiet years were never wasted, share the dream, the sign, or the moment that confirmed it for you, so others may witness the truth alongside you. Because what they dismissed is about to become undeniable. And as you step into this revelation, understand this. What they mocked as silence is about to roar as authority in the next chapter. Number 2, the exile that refined you. Rejection was not your destruction. It was your consecration. Every betrayal became a furnace. Every silence a hammer shaping your endurance. They thought their absence would weaken you, but their abandonment only drove you deeper into divine alignment. The wilderness is where Moses encountered the burning bush, where exile became the place of revelation. So too, your wilderness was holy ground. What felt like delay was design, and what looked like loss was shaping you for reign. Comment: I walk crowned by eternal flame. If you've seen exile turn into strength, and know that your rejection was preparation for your coronation. Because your exile was never the end, it was the refining fire before the unveiling. There are seasons in a chosen one's life where the air itself feels heavy, as if unseen eyes are watching every step, waiting for you to falter. You may not have had the language for it then, but you felt the strange pull of resistance that shadowed you in places where others seemed to walk freely. Doors that should have opened stayed shut, opportunities that seemed certain slipped away without reason, and the silence around you grew louder with each attempt to move forward. This was not coincidence, but a signal that your path was never meant to be ordinary. The discomfort you carried was a quiet mark of distinction, the first sign that something in you unsettled the structures around you. Like Daniel in Babylon, you were placed in an environment that did not match your spirit, yet was necessary for your formation. What looked like exile was actually the beginning of revelation, a place where hidden forces first revealed themselves by trying to suppress your light. The emotional pressure of this season was unbearable at times, and it left scars that others never saw. You know the feeling of walking into a room and sensing that your presence was already too much, even before you spoke a word. You know the ache of being misunderstood, of having your silence called arrogance, your passion called madness, your sensitivity called weakness. Rejection became familiar, not from strangers, but from the very people you longed to belong to. Shame crept in quietly, whispering that something must be wrong with you to keep attracting the same cycle of betrayal and dismissal. Yet in the depths of your isolation, another truth began to form, that what they resisted in you was the very thing heaven had placed there. Their discomfort was not proof of your failure, but evidence of your calling pressing against their illusions. Step back now and see what was hidden behind those moments. Their cruelty, their abandonment, and their silence were not random. They were responses to the frequency you carried. Systems built on shallow ground react violently when real depth enters the room. People accustomed to masks grow defensive when someone unmasked walks among them. Energies built to suppress truth tremble when confronted with someone marked by divine authenticity. This is why your journey echoes the wilderness motif in Scripture. 40 years for Israel, 40 days for Christ. Each exile a refining ground where surface identities were stripped away. Your exile was never punishment. It was consecration. They thought they were discarding you, but heaven was setting you apart. When you look back now, the patterns become clearer than they ever were in the moment. It wasn't just one person or one betrayal. It was a repeated rhythm, almost too precise to ignore. The friend who turned on you at your most vulnerable, the mentor who withheld support when you needed it most, the environment that drained you until you could barely breathe. These were not scattered accidents, but a tapestry woven to train your discernment. You began to see how each loss was a mirror, exposing the shadow of control, manipulation, or fear in others. And though the recognition was painful, it was also liberating, because light is never wasted when it exposes darkness. Like a lamp in a darkened room, the truth of your journey began to flicker into sight, revealing that none of it was random. It was all pointing to a larger design. The resistance grew not only in people, but in atmosphere. You may have felt it as a fog, a heaviness pressing against your chest, a sudden doubt rising just before a breakthrough, or a strange silence that followed your boldest prayers. This was not imagination. Chosen one, this was the interference that comes when light begins to press against barriers built by shadows. The closed doors were not always physical. Sometimes they were energetic, a weight meant to tire you into surrender. Yet, the more the resistance grew, the clearer your identity became. It was proof that what you carried was never common, because common things are not opposed so fiercely. The heaviness around you was simply the reaction of an atmosphere being forced to make space for what was entering through you. In those seasons, your reaction mattered deeply. Sometimes you shut down, retreating into silence, believing their lies about your worth. Sometimes you tried to people please, shrinking yourself in hopes of finally being accepted. Other times, your rebellion was quiet, a refusal to bow even if it cost you connection or comfort. None of these responses were failures. They were stages of survival while you were being refined. The fear of standing out, the temptation to disappear, the longing to simply stop fighting. All of these were real, but they did not end your story. They only deepened the well within you, preparing you to carry an authority that could not be borrowed or faked. And when the time came, the very survival that once felt like weakness became your secret weapon. Now the fire turns, and you begin to see the exile for what it was, a crown being forged in hidden places. Every betrayal was oil feeding your flame, every silence a hammer shaping your endurance, every rejection a furnace refining your gold. The resistance was confirmation, not condemnation. You were never weak for enduring it. You were strong for surviving it. Like Joseph rising from the pit to the palace, your exile was the very route that positioned you for reign. Their absence did not leave you empty. It left you aligned with the only presence that truly mattered. And as you reclaim your voice, you find that what was always yours has returned, stronger, sharper, unbreakable. So here is the revelation. You were opposed because you are powerful. You were rejected because you carry what they cannot control. The exile was not the end of your story. It was the fiery passage into your coronation. They cannot undo the refining that has already been completed in you, nor can they deny the crown that was waiting on the other side of your wilderness. Comment, I move guarded by divine fire. If you know that your rejection was not destruction, but preparation, share the memory, the sign, or the moment where you saw exile turn into strength so others can witness the truth with you. Because what comes next is not just your survival. It is the unveiling of a throne they never thought you'd reach, and a fire they will never be able to extinguish. Number 3, the day of unveiling. There comes a moment when what was hidden refuses to remain in shadows. The crown that sat invisible begins to blaze, undeniable, and the very ones who mocked you are forced to bow their heads in uneasy silence. Their laughter turns hollow, their arrogance collapses, and their whispers shift to awe. Revelation 3 verse 21 declares, "To the one who is victorious, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne." That is the moment you are walking into now, not imagined, not begged for, but appointed. Comment, I rise marked by the divine. If you felt that shift when your presence suddenly demanded respect, and share the dream, memory, or knowing that confirmed it. Because the day of unveiling does not ask permission. It arrives as a storm. There are moments when the veil begins to thin, and suddenly what never made sense becomes illuminated in a strange and undeniable way. It may be the memory of a rejection that once cut deep, now reappearing in your mind not as a wound but as proof that you were being hidden for your coronation. It may be the realization that the long nights of silence were not empty, but rich with signals you were not yet ready to decode. The shift happens quietly at first, like a soft cracking in the walls of illusion that surrounded you for years. But once you notice it, you cannot unsee it, because every sign starts pointing in the same direction. What felt random, scattered, and cruel begins to align like pieces of a puzzle that had been waiting for you to look with new eyes. And the moment you see it, the air itself feels different, charged with a clarity that demands you step into what you have always carried. Symbols begin to reveal themselves, not through loud announcements, but through a language that was always present beneath the noise. Numbers repeat, dreams echo, conversations feel scripted by a higher hand, and the silence between events begins to speak louder than the events themselves. You start to understand that creation has always been whispering in codes, waiting for you to be sensitive enough to listen. Geometry hidden in nature, patterns in the words you hear, alignments in the timing of chance encounters. They all become a map only your spirit can read. The unveiling is not a sudden gift, but the unlocking of sight you had all along, veiled by the dust of distraction. Once the dust falls away, the truth feels both overwhelming and intimate, as though reality itself is leaning close to show you its secret face. And in that face, you begin to recognize not just the world, but yourself reflected back. Inside you, the signs intensify, as if your own soul is now determined to leave no doubt. Intuition sharpens to the point where silence feels louder than words, and you begin to sense outcomes before they occur. Boundaries rise naturally, not from defiance, but from an inner knowing that you cannot carry the same weight you once tolerated. Your body becomes more sensitive to spaces, people, and energies, reacting instantly when something is misaligned. Emotions that once felt like confusion now carry the weight of prophecy, revealing the truth of situations before the facts arrive. The hidden flame in your chest no longer flickers. It steadies into a fire that knows its purpose. And though this might unsettle those around you, for you it feels like the long-awaited moment when the inside and the outside finally begin to match. As this unveiling deepens, the outer world begins to shift in ways you can no longer deny. People who once dismissed you now hesitate before speaking, uncertain of how to stand before the authority you radiate. Relationships dissolve or transform, not because you force them to, but because the frequency you now carry will not allow falsehood to remain. Opportunities appear where there were only walls, while new forms of resistance arise, as proof that your presence now forces hidden systems to recalculate. The architecture of your life begins to look less like chaos and more like design, as if invisible hands are weaving around you. You begin to see what Psalm 37 verse 23 declares: "The steps of a good person are ordered by the Lord." Alignment is no longer a word you use lightly. It is the fabric of your existence. And with every shift, you feel yourself walking not into something new, but into something ancient that has finally ripened. Then comes the stirring of sacred memory, the quiet voice reminding you that this moment is not an invention, but a return. A dream from childhood reappears, sharper than ever, revealing its prophetic layers you could not grasp then. A phrase someone once spoke, long forgotten, suddenly echoes back like a code you were meant to unlock today. It feels less like discovery and more like remembrance, as if your soul is whispering, "I told you long ago who you are, and now you finally hear me." What was dormant awakens, not as a new seed, but as a tree whose roots were always buried beneath your ground. The unveiling is not the start of your story, but the resurfacing of an identity too holy to be revealed before its time. And the magnetic pull of this memory makes you realize that you have never been wandering. You have been circling back to the truth etched into you before you were born. With memory comes vision, and the road ahead begins to blaze in colors you could not see before. Destiny no longer feels like a concept, but like a rhythm beating in your very bones, calling you to step without hesitation. You stop asking for permission to be who you are, because you recognize that authority does not wait to be validated. The unveiling shows you that the future is not being created. It is being reclaimed step by step as you retrieve the inheritance they tried to bury. Every move you make feels like prophecy fulfilled in real time, because you are no longer trying to fit into their story. You are stepping fully into your own. And as Revelation 3 verse 21 declares, the throne is not in the distance. It is the very seat your journey has prepared for. What once felt like hope becomes reality, and reality itself feels like a coronation. The reclamation begins when you decide to stop seeing resistance as proof of weakness and start seeing it as confirmation of strength. You realize that every attempt to suppress you was really a signpost declaring what you carried. You remember that exile was not your punishment but your consecration, and rejection was the fire that shaped your crown. This is the fierce shift from asking why to declaring now. You speak not to beg for recognition, but to awaken the voice that was always yours. You begin to embody the authority you once doubted, and the world bends under the weight of your authenticity. The unveiling is not about being seen. It is about finally seeing yourself as heaven has always seen you. Revelation is not the end. It is the invitation into everything that comes next. The truth was never far. It was waiting for the day your eyes could bear its light. And now that you see, nothing will look the same again. Not your past, not your present, not the faces of those who opposed you. The unveiling crowns you not only with fire but with sight, and that sight carries you into a destiny that no opposition can reverse. Comment, I walk hidden yet never lost. If you feel the moment of unveiling burning through your spirit, and share the memory, dream, or inner knowing that confirmed it. Because your testimony is not just for you. It is the spark that lights recognition in others walking the same path. And remember, chosen one, the day of unveiling is not the storm's end. It is the gathering of winds before the greater fire descends. Number 4, the coronation in fire. Your rise is no longer a quiet unfolding. It is a blaze consuming everything false around you. The crown you wear is not just a symbol for you. It ignites others, setting alight the dry wood of illusions and broken systems. Hebrews 12 verse 29 says, "Our God is a consuming fire, and that same consuming fire has clothed your authority." Your presence forces masks to fall, because no falsehood can survive inauthentic flame. What began as hidden preparation has now erupted into manifestation, and no scheme can smother it. Comment, I anchor this truth in my soul. If you feel the fire in your own journey beginning to blaze beyond silence, and share the vision or experience that proved it to you, because your coronation is not a private victory, it is a movement of fire sweeping across a generation. It begins as a whisper older than language, a vibration in the marrow that feels like it has been calling you for centuries. You cannot name the sound, but it moves through you as though a sacred scroll were being unsealed within your chest. It is not invention but remembrance, as if the silence you carried was only a veil covering the voice of eternity. Ancient symbols rise in the mind, flames on an altar, trumpets echoing across unseen halls, the hush of angels waiting. The unveiling does not feel foreign. It feels like a homecoming to a place you always knew existed, yet had forgotten. You realize that the heaviness you bore was never emptiness, but gestation, waiting for this exact hour of emergence. And in this remembrance, you recognize that the fire has always been part of you, older than your name and stronger than your silence. There has always been a hidden name, carried like a sealed promise, resting quietly beneath the surface of the life they saw. They called you by labels, by wounds, by accusations that never fit, because the true name was not theirs to speak. Like the scroll in Revelation that no one could open but the Lamb, your identity was sealed until its time. You felt the ache of not belonging, the strangeness of moving through a world that never mirrored your essence. Your journey proves this truth. They cannot erase what heaven has written. You did not just survive, you ascended. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment, I am chosen to let this message anchor in your soul. 4 full prophetic revelations daily. Join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, Consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every Super Thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. The silence is over. Chosen one, the crown is yours. The blaze has begun.